All right, guys, welcome back to Within Tolerance. This is episode 72, and I'm joined with Dylan once again for our solo episode. So, without further ado, Dylan, how has it been in the past 2 weeks?
Good. It has been a crazy 2 weeks. We had a few rush orders that were very rushed, and then I had even more stuff dumped in my lap on Monday, which has um, been interesting. A friend of mine, an ex customer and a friend, was leaving town and had some parts that still needed to be done. And so he was like, "Hey, can you take these on?" And I foolishly did. So now I'm trying to get those done along with some other orders that I've got.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, but lots of late nights and rush tooling and all that. One big thing that I'll plug here. Everybody loves to hate MSC, but they did bring back their free overnight upgrade.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's good to know.
yeah, I went to order something I think last Friday, or maybe 2 Fridays ago, and I was like, man, I really need it to like tomorrow or Monday, and so I want to go upgrade it to overnight, and I was like, oh man, I'm about to pay like $100, and then I look and I'm like, oh, $12, sweet.
Yeah, seriously.
So that's a really big plus to have that back. Um, yeah, so things have been going well. What
That's
about you?
good. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Um, just today, I replaced everything on my printer, all like the um, everything that wears out, all the consumables. Got new ink because that goes bad. I mean, spent a lot of money to get this um, printer like perfect now. All brand new ink. That I mean, this will last me like 6 months, but still, it's kind of scary how much money this printer is in consumables. And I've talked about that before, but it prints so crisp now. Like I was just struggling like a couple weeks ago. It's always a challenge to get like really pure white. And that's really important with UV printing is getting a really good white. And I was just like not getting white at all. And then I switched over everything today. I cleaned it, did maintenance, and like I'm getting like the best white ever. Like it's just the way it should be, and it's so nice. But I try not to think about how much all these consumables cost me.
Well, with the amount of orders you've been putting out, it sounds like it's well worth your time and money.
Oh yeah, and not to forget that Black Friday is the end of this month, and I'm just realizing that. So I've got a lot of printing to do that otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. So
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, you were like sold a ton just on your drop, so I can't imagine.
yeah, I'm gonna let's see. Last year's Black Friday was by far the biggest I've done. Let's just say I did like a month's worth of sales in like 2 days, and I want to try to like double or triple that. And so like it's going to be kind of crazy. Like you said, it really hit me today. I'm like, okay, we're going to have to go back to kind of my shitty schedule of like not as much sleep, but it's okay.
Yeah, it sounds like you're you're gonna be not sleeping all that much.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating. I'm printing on those helmets that I had molded and released. Now that I got my printer back up and running the way I like it, I'm now printing on the helmets, um,
Oh, neat.
and doing all sorts of stuff. I can send you a picture here. So that's what I've been doing today. But what sucks is since the printing is so small, the cycle time for printing like 10 of these helmets is like 30 seconds. Um, and it's kind of a janky setup, so I don't want to like make a fancier fixture to do more. Um, but it's just like I'm basically there the whole time, just printing and unloading and loading. So I mean, they're gonna sell really well, and I'm excited to bring them to market. But it's just like one of those things. I'm just gonna have to kind of trudge through.
Is that something you can have your cousin or friend come over and load for you?
I'd have to come up with a better fixture because you have to orient. So some of these helmets, they're not symmetrical, so there's like a front and a back to it, and you have to line it up just by eye. There's no real way to locate it and like clock it. Um, and so that's where it's just like I could probably show someone, but then my trust level and I don't know. I mean, it takes me, I think I did the math. I could do like 200 helmets in 30 minutes, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I sent you pictures. I don't know if you got them, but
Yeah, they look good.
I mean,
That's
that
really
printing
neat.
is like the size of half your pinky's thumbnail. Like it's tiny.
Yeah, that's that's crazy how accurate that thing is.
Yeah, but it's cool. People love this detail level, so it's going to be cool.
That's awesome. How about an update on your shipping and all that? Or is your mom and family still packing stuff for you? And
Yeah, it was funny. My mom, she listens to the podcast and she's like, "I got a shout out." And then she was listening to how you got the Lego figure and she's like, "If I saw I didn't she's like, "I didn't realize Dylan ordered." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I should have wrote a note, but I didn't see." And I was like, "Well, I'm glad you did it now."
oh
So,
man,
if you guys buy with Intolerance Lego figure, you put something in the note section of the order, she's gonna see it now. So I don't know if
um,
that's a good or bad thing to say.
that's pretty awesome. That is really neat. What?
Yeah, then I mean, all that's like I said, it's going good, and I'm just like kind of on this, I guess, another little restock. I mean, it's not little, but it's not as big as the one I did like a month ago.
So last we talked, you had put together like a new sorting system for your RPGs too. Is that working out?
Oh yeah, so that's completely done. That works. I haven't had to help my mom with that or anything. It just kind of it's done. So
Sweet.
that I mean, I literally checked all the boxes. Like I was thinking and I was just going through my website. I'm like, what product could cause a problem? And I was just like thinking, I was like, oh, maybe this one. And I was like, how can we eliminate that? Let's do this or let's do that. And so there's literally, I mean, it's been going on for probably close to a month now. Like I think all the problems have been pretty much weeded out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
So
it's
speaking of your website, have you gotten inventory control yet?
so I have my email open and I have a low inventory alert right now.
Oh snap!
So I'm just on the trial right now and I just wanted to see how it works and I just need to spend and this is the problem. It's really now it's just I don't have the time to I need to sit down for like a whole day and do this cuz I have a lot of products and I got to really kind of strategically think about okay, what do I want my minimums to be and why? Um and this kind of goes back to something I was thinking about and I was having a conversation with my mom, but then I also talked to Drew Fab on the phone for like 45 minutes like last week and we were talking about all sorts of cool business stuff. And one of my problems I was running into and this is kind of going into kind of like the whole book club thing with bottlenecks and stuff was I was like, okay, I have all these blank parts that aren't printed. Okay. There's only one of me, there's only one printer, so obviously that's a potential bottleneck, but let's think past that. Okay. If I have low inventory set up, so let's say just for talking purposes, I have 3 products on my website. And product number 1 goes out of stock and or no, it doesn't go out of stock. I get a low inventory alert and it says there's 20 left and I'm like, "Okay, I'll order parts. Parts will be here in a week. It takes me only a day to print them. So basically in a week, I'll have them back in stock." And so if and when I get this set up, what this will help me eliminate is what I'm doing right now, where I'm looking around my room and I've got thousands of dollars in blank parts. I've got all these blank parts that I can't print all at once, right? I mean, I can only print one thing at a time. And so if now all of a sudden every week I'm getting an inventory alert here and there and here, sure I might suck it up and just be paying more in shipping from buying from all these suppliers more times versus in bulk, but it's going to eliminate the keep doing all these I don't know, like giant restocks where I'm stressed out. I've got all this money sitting inventory and blank parts, and then I got to restock it, and then by the time that stuff's restocked, a whole bunch of other stuff's out of stock. Like, why not just keep things in stock one by one, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I think I don't know if it's part of the module you bought, but like you should start having historical data too.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing with Shopify. They have a really good plan for all that, but they charge you like $300 a month for that. And I'm like, yeah, no.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, I don't know. There's probably some cheaper plugins that I could get that would track specific things like that. Um, but I really think that, let's say in a perfect world, everything's in stock. Okay. Then item number A goes out of stock. Okay. Let's order the parts. Let's get that process rolling right now, because by the time we get them, we can print them. And then the next thing will be out of stock. We'll get parts. We'll print that. And we're not getting this piled up effect. Um, and it makes more sense with my printer because, I mean, this ink goes bad after 6 to 8 months. And this printer is designed to, it's just like any other machine. It's happier when it's running. It doesn't like being stagnant for a week at a time. And so if I can just every day print for 2 hours versus print for a week straight, I think that's just much better overall.
Yeah. Well, and to bring in, or to not jump the gun, but to bring in the goal and what we just read and finished the book out, what you might want to do is, do you order from the same people every time?
No,
Or
and
uh,
that's a problem because Lego parts, I mean, they're all over the world. It changes all the time.
and there's no like supplier that you use frequently?
I mean, there's one, but they don't have everything.
Well, maybe you could talk to them about like saying, I'll buy X number of these per year if you can get them, and I just want them split up into smaller shipments, and that way you could like, buy 10,000 pieces, and then say, I'll trigger you when I need 1,000 of them, or when I need whatever.
Yeah, I had that idea a long time ago, but it's kind of complicated and confusing how this whole buying parts off the third market or third party market or whatever it works. It's annoying, but I don't know. You just kind of have to deal with it. From what I've found, there's no real good way around it because I like the idea of what you said, and I've thought of that. But the problem is these sellers, they don't want to hold that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you talk to them though, and they say that like, here's what I can pay for 10,000, like they might. I know if I was selling stuff resale, if I could for sure get a paycheck every year or every couple months, and distribute the same thing to the same person, it would be a nice like ace in the hole kind of thing.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean,
I
worst
mean,
they can
it's
say is
something.
no.
Yeah, it's something to consider. But I've definitely I need to get all of these, systems in place, and now that shipping's handled, now it's like, okay, things are selling out quickly. How do we get that under control?
Yeah,
So that's where I'm at.
yeah. And then you've also been machining this week.
Yeah, I picked up a bunch of aluminum, like 400 pounds. So I got all that. I'm so annoyed because I go there right in my Forerunner, and everyone looks at me because they're like, "What is this kid doing with his car?" And like, he doesn't have like a truck, and they always say they're like, I always walk in there, and they always totally judge me. They're like, "What are you doing here?" Type. Like, I can just tell that's what they're thinking. Um, and it's like, guys, I've spent like thousands of dollars with you. Like, chill. Like, you should know me by now. And they bring this little box, and I'm just like on a forklift. I'm like, is that really it was two 12-foot bars of 2.5 by 2.5 inch aluminum cut up into saw cut pieces. And I was like, all that's in that box? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And turns out it wasn't. And they're shipping me like 50 pieces that were missing. Um,
Oh,
but
jeez.
but I was like, okay, like I figured something was up because that box just seemed oddly small, but it did weigh about the right amount. So
Hmm. That's bizarre.
yeah, so I don't know. That was kind of weird.
So how's it feel to be back at the machine? Because you've been printing and shipping and doing BrickTactical stuff for a while. How's it to feel to boot up the DM again?
I mean, it's been running here and there doing mold stuff. I just haven't really been posting or talking about it, but like it's so weird how I can walk away for like a week or two at a time and I can go right back to it. Like it's just so secondhand. Like I just like the whole edit reset memory or G0, G90, G54, G43, whatever, like to double check stuff. Like it just happens. It's so weird to me how, I mean, I've done it for so long, but it's just funny how I can just walk up to that thing again and just like totally manhandle it as a machine.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear.
So, yeah, I mean, the parts I were making, they make so many chips, and I was just like, I hate dealing with chips, but it is what it is. And then one cool thing, I got this Goering drill. It's like a 4.5 millimeter drill, carbide, and I looked on their website for speeds and feeds, and they wanted like a 6.5 thou um, inch per rev or something, and that's like 15,000 RPMs or something, and I only had 10,000 RPMs. But like, I was shocked at that small of a drill. Just like I'm doing two pecks. I think it's going 3/4 of an inch deep, but I want to try one peck. But like total push the drill hard because I was babying it and it was bird's nesting. And then I was like, all right, let's just feed override this and make it go really fast. And it seems fine.
Oh yeah, yeah. And aluminum, you can push drills a scary amount before
Yeah.
they become dangerous. Like it's Easton and I were talking about that a few weeks ago because he got I think a Go drill that was through spindle, and he's just like shocked at how fast you can push them, and it's pretty nuts.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm doing a peck right now, but everyone says don't peck with carbide. Some people say, depending on the size and the depth, maybe split it. I want to try no peck because it'll drop the cycle time down. So, um, and then it's interesting. I've been playing with some, let's see, 1/8 inch by 0.3125 length of cut end mills, and I want to try to push those really fast. I know someone that's pushing one at like 120 inches a minute, like 40 thou width of
Depth of
cut.
cut.
Yeah. No, width of cut and full depth.
Oh wow.
And I'm at 40 inches a minute. My whole thing was like I just wanted to get a couple of these parts done. I didn't want to break anything cuz I only have two of the tools, but now that the parts are off to anodize, like I want to play with that and try to haul ass.
Yeah, I don't think I have a problem. That's yeah, I, that's a good length of cut for that size tool. Like three times diameter is not bad at all.
Yeah, and I figure I was doing so it was a like I said, 3-1. I think the actual depth of the pocket's only 310 thou, but basically the length of the tool. And I was doing it in two step downs, which doubled my cycle time. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's go to full depth. And it worked. But now I want to go to full depth and like double the speed, because that's by far the longest cycle time or tool path on this part.
Can you clear out like any sections with a bigger tool first?
No, but what I on one of the parts, I'm drilling with that 4.5 millimeter drill. So there's a lot of like holes, um, which is nice, but I don't know. Yeah, there's not really room to get in there with a bigger tool.
That's too bad. But yeah, at least
Yeah.
there's the drill stuff, and like Fusion should be able to detect that there's no material there and not machine it. So,
Yeah.
well, sweet. Sounds like it's been a good week.
Yeah, it's been crazy to say the least.
Speaking of, you were talking about material people. I think I shared last time that like my saleswoman left, and that I was trying to find a new one at IMS locally. Did I tell you that?
Yes.
And then the person who initially I talked to was like horrible. Like it took forever. But I found a new girl there, and she's fantastic. Like
Oh, nice.
responds back immediately. Even responds back like confirming that she got my emails and things like that, which is, yeah, she's been fantastic. So it's, I was like looking for a, I was gonna like start buying material out of Phoenix or something if I needed to, but thankfully, thankfully it seems like she's gonna work. I mean, we'll see. I've only done 2 or 3 orders through her, so we'll I'll keep ordering and see if it all works out. But yeah, it's such a big like relief to be like, oh, I can order material locally. I can get it next day. Like, oh,
Yeah.
whew, okay.
Well, yeah, and
uh,
that's one thing I had a problem with this one guy, and he's actually been pretty good compared to these other guys at this place locally for me. And I was trying to, because obviously it's cheaper if you buy like just a full bar of something, right? And so I was like, if I buy 2 bars, can you cut these 3 different lengths out of these bars? And he's like, well, we can't do that. I'm like, well, yeah, you can. You do this, this, and this. Like, this is how many of this size, this, and this. And like, he was getting frustrated with me because like it wasn't straightforward or whatnot. And I'm like I'm just trying to save $200 on not buying a third bar here. Like I don't know why this is an issue. And then eventually he got it done, and I was just like, I don't understand what the problem was there. So I don't
that's
know.
super frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always kind of hated buying material because it seems like they just don't care. Like it's like anodized where like unless you find a really good person, it's such a low value added process that like they just don't give a shit.
Yeah, and that was something I've never dealt with anodizing because I always a lot of the customer parts that I do get anodized, but they're always like, "Hey, can you get them anodized?" I'm like, "Nope, sorry. Like you have to deal with that. I'm not dealing with that." Because I don't want, and I've talked about this before, I don't want a part going to anodize and then getting to the customer afterwards and the customer saying, well, this hole isn't to size or it doesn't fit right or this. And I was like, okay, like now it's out of my control and now I'm being blamed. Um, so, but I went to this local anodizing company that I found through one of my customers, and I've never like been to a place that anodizes parts. It's kind of cool to walk around, um, and all the different ways they hold them and whatnot. And I was looking at all these different coatings and whatnot. And so they're doing some testing on some of the parts I gave them, and I should have them later this week. And then I'll give them the rest to do next week, after I decide which one to go with. But it was really interesting.
Nice. Yeah, and like a thing to remember while doing anodizing is like be as specific as you possibly can. Like on your
Yeah.
parts, since they're cosmetic, like I would identify threads or something like that to use as racking points. So that way you
Yeah.
don't get random like little pits in your, outside finish or something like that.
Oh yeah,
So
no, we it was I was very clear on that for sure.
yeah, because I usually, if there's something important like that, I make up a quick print in Fusion and like bring it with the parts, and then on the PO to them say refer to this document. Like I dropped off. I mean, speaking of anodize, I think I've said it a few times. I love my anodize shop, and I dropped off something Monday morning at 6 a.m. and was like, I need this today. Like I have to ship this today, and they got it done for me by 2 o'clock.
Wow.
And like, granted, I paid a pretty hefty expedite, but I had already factored that in and all that stuff. Um, but like, I brought a print, and I was like, here are the slots and the holes you need to mask. Here are places you can rack. Refer to this on the PO, and like they did it perfect. So
Yeah, and that was one thing because I accounted for the buildup on some of these holes, and they're kind of a tight tolerance hole, which is kind of scary. But it was just nice because after talking to him, he's like, you know what, like next batch of parts, let's just mask them. And he showed me and kind of explained that to me, and I was like, okay, because I thought it was a burden on their part. I mean, obviously it's labor, but he was like, it's not that bad. Like we'll do it and just make your life easier. I'm like, oh, okay.
oh yeah, like the place I go, they mask any threaded hole, at least small threaded holes, like I don't know, 10 or quarter inch or under. Actually, they've even masked quarter-inch holes. Like you have to ask them if you want them to anodize those because anodize doesn't build up in small threads very well. They
Okay.
know that, and they're like, we'll just mask them and make it look nice. And so
Yeah.
Masking's super easy for them, especially I don't think it's a through hole on yours; it's a blind hole. But like through holes are super super easy. Like I just dealt with that at work for masking through threaded holes for tumbling, and like
Okay.
there's like a few places that sell these plugs that have like a long tail on them, and you just push the tail through the hole, pull on it, and it like pulls the plug in and locks it in there.
Huh.
So yeah, then like as far as complicated masking on anodized, they can either use film. I've seen where you give them the model and they cut film on a laser cutter to apply to it, or I've seen like they use more or less it's like nail polish that they paint
Okay.
on, or like a vinyl paint that they paint on, and that masks as well.
Huh.
So yeah, it's some places depending on what their specialty are like super super good at masking. So yeah, it really just depends.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because I'm always skeptical of people, if they're doing a sales job on me or if they actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Sometimes it can be hard to tell.
well, you're doing it right by giving them test parts. Like if they can't even handle a few test parts, they're certainly not going to handle a production run.
Yeah, so I was, like I said, there was a couple options of coatings I wanted to try, and I was like, "Can you just do samples of these?" And like, "Oh yeah, for sure." And I was like, "Okay, good," because like I wanted to get them done and just like, "Here, do them all like this," but he's like, "We should try some things." I was like, "Okay, you're the expert here. Like, I'm gonna agree with you, and let's go at a slow pace because either way, I'm gonna get to the finish line. I'd rather get there in one piece."
Yeah, yeah, no, I think I think you're doing it well. Like it's certainly better to do it that way than put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the whole weekend on the parts, and I would hate for that to be wasted.
Yeah. So I had also put on here, in addition to the rush orders, we both got our Talon from T5. Have you gotten a chance to play around with that?
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. So one thing that Ty and I didn't discuss really, and it was kind of my bad. I should have said something to him, but I've got only 8-inch calipers in my shop.
Okay.
And I had always just assumed, like, I had never had a 6-inch one next to an 8-inch one, and apparently they're quite a bit bigger. Like
Okay.
the jaws themselves from top to
Yeah.
bottom are bigger. So mine sits in there. It actually sits in there fine, and I didn't realize that it was not sitting in there right. And then I sent him a picture of it, and he was like, "Oh shoot, I forgot you have the 8-inch ones. Those are huge." I was like, "Yeah, it's all yeah." But I've been carrying it a lot. Like it's super nice to have it. Like I still haven't carried it enough that it's like my go-to reach. Like
Yeah.
I still look around for a caliper for a brief second. Like I don't move, but I like start looking at the nearest table, and then I'm like, oh, it's on my hip, and I grab it and like measure something. But I love the little swivel clip instead of like a flexible clip, because it makes it
Uh-huh.
so much easier to get into my belt. Um, so yeah, it was super neat, and I really appreciate Ty from sending that out. So if anybody wants a caliper holster, uh, T5 Manufacturing on or T5 MFG on Instagram makes them, and I think he's still selling his uh, first run right now.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I definitely wanted to mention that because I thought it was super cool that he sent them out to us. Yeah, it looks like he's still doing his run, and his
Okay,
website
yeah.
is t5manufacturingco.com.
Yeah, go check them out, everybody.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Oh, the other thing that like threw a wrench into all of these rush orders is that in the middle of the week, our swamp cooler just started like dripping water, like, and it's super hard water because it's been up there forever, so it like calcifies on everything that it touches. And our landlord was like, "Oh, we're just going to replace your swamp cooler." And so like for a few days we were pretty much down because our swamp cooler is like right over the space in between all three machines.
Yeah.
And we had people in there taking down one, and then like they kept saying like, "Oh, we'll be back tomorrow morning to replace the inside vent." And like then they didn't show up, and then they did show up, and like it was just like, in addition to already being stressed trying to get everything done, that was like a super added stress, and I lost a bunch of time on it, and it was just frustrating.
Yeah. Well, at least it's new.
Well, you would say that, but I also can't turn it on because it blows
Oh shit.
water everywhere right now.
Oh
I think
no.
that they like. I guess what happened is when they finally finished the install, I wasn't there, and Brad was. He was there to let them in it initially, and then he left before they were done, and so they couldn't test it. And we both think that they turned the pump on way too strong because yeah, you turn on the pump or you turn on the full system, and it just starts like leaking water out of there. I'm like, oh great, so everything's gonna rust in my shop if I turn this thing on.
Yeah.
Um,
Jeez.
so right now it's just nice because it's not like uh, dropping garbage. Like ours will just drop like rust flakes everywhere every time you turned it on, and so like everything
Yeah.
is covered in like garbage. So it doesn't do that anymore. It just leaks water now, and we're still not done cleaning up all of the calcified water. Like it was thick on the floor and on a table and on like my caliper case. Thankfully, it didn't get inside. But like we're still cleaning it up with CLR and vinegar and stuff. So um,
Jeez.
yeah, it's been a little bit of a hassle for sure. And then let's see. Oh, I mentioned this I think the last one when we talked about tax breaks and all of that, but we are actively looking into either a new saw before the end of the year, um, because I destroyed that blade on my cold cut saw cutting titanium, and like we've just been needing one for a while to like actually be able to cut material in house. Either that, a new compressor, or possibly a surface plate and a height gauge. So I'm still not sure, but if anybody has especially saw recommendations. Right now, I'm leaning towards a Bailey one that Tom Machinist also has and reached out and showed me. We're not looking for like a full CNC one. Like, yeah, granted, I'd love that, but I'm not spending 30 grand on a saw right now. We don't have the orders to support something like that. So I just need um, I guess miter ability would be nice, but really I just need a horizontal bandsaw with hydraulic downfeed or like the gravity downfeed that's adjustable and preferably a VFD adjustable drive. Like I could deal with belts or gears, but I'd much rather have like an infinitely adjustable spindle speed or belt speed.
Might be a dumb question, but
Mhm.
why don't you just go with like a chop saw
That's what I have right now.
and you don't like it?
It works. It's just slow, and like you have to be there. Like if I get
Okay.
a horizontal bandsaw with the hydraulic downfeed, like I can just set up like I don't know 4 or 5 bars if I'm cutting smaller stock, all at the right cut, and then let it cut, and it'll cut for a minute or two while I'm going and doing something else.
I guess my question would be, I mean, it's are you doing high enough volume where you would actually be cutting like 4 bars at a time?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they charge quite a bit for a cut at pretty much anywhere. So especially like IMS, they charge $1 to a cut, something like that.
Okay.
So anytime I'm doing even like a 50-piece order, or I've got 50 individual pieces across a few different bars, I'd much rather buy bigger stock, like a foot or two of everything, and then cut it myself.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I want a saw. I think we could really use one. We've both been talking about it for a while. I would also love a quieter compressor. So
I was about to say, honestly, that I feel like is way that should be number one.
we'll see. Because like I technically don't need a new compressor though. Like we've got
Yeah.
a nice compressor. It's just noisy.
Yeah.
So again, what we're gonna buy, we still haven't figured out, but I know we're going to make a purchase before the end of the year. So if anybody has any opinions or thinks that they know what I should buy, feel free to reach out either to the Within Tolerance Instagram or mine or on the Discord Within Tolerance Discord. And I'm happy to listen to all opinions. Don't get mad if I don't take your advice, but I'm definitely happy to listen. Um, so let's see, what else did I have? Oh, the FCR. So I mentioned it, I think 2 podcasts ago that I got it. The Big Kaiser face mill rougher thing.
Oh yeah.
It is bananas. Like it is so crazy powerful. It's through spindle coolant. I can reach 1.890 with it. And like Easton and I have been going back and forth. He got to his quicker than I got to mine, and has been running speeds and feeds. And like right now, I'm into what a quarter inch step down, half an inch step over at 240 inches a minute, and that's like 30 cubic inches of material removal, and I haven't broken 30% spindle load yet.
Wow.
And I know Easton's at 300 thou step down and 700 something step over is what he tried today, at the same speeds and feeds, and it's just insane. Like it's all dual contact. He isn't even dual contact, and he's still hitting these speeds no problem.
Yeah.
I think this is really one of those tools where I'm going to be like pull stud limited before I'm tool limited. So
Yeah, that's something I would be concerned about.
yeah, like I showed it to Brad the other day, and he was like, "Holy crap!" He's like, "That is frightening." I was like, "Yep." Oh, and it also puts out so much coolant mist because it's through
Yeah.
spindle that I need to get my mist away hooked up. Like I think that when I finish my orders Thursday, that's going to be my big project for the weekend, is finally hooking that up. I have all the ducting and stuff. I need to mount it. So I'm going to get that done because, man, it is like tough to breathe.
Yeah. It shouldn't be a big project. You'll get that done quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think I mentioned I'm going to mount it on the side of my electronics cabinet in the back, or electrical cabinet. Like there's
Yeah.
a few M6 bosses that are already built into it. So I'll just mount it back there. But yeah, so it's been like insane how fast I can rough stuff out. Like I roughed out this giant block. Yes, well, not giant, but it was like a fairly decent sized block yesterday in like 1 minute, and it was just done. Um, so it's been super cool to play around with. It's definitely like a staple tool now. Like my tool 11 is the FCR, and like that's all said and done. And like for the price of it, if anybody's looking for a good ripper in aluminum, the Colroy is great, or Corloy, but I couldn't find one in the size and length that I wanted. And this one it was more expensive because the Corloys are just stupid cheap if you buy the kits. But this one off of Maisumi is crazy cheap. I think it's a couple $100 or like $150 if you get the shorter ones. And then I bought the inserts through my Yamazin dealer because for some reason all of the big Kaiser stuff is, so it's sold as big Daishowa on Maisumi because it's coming from Japan. But the inserts are way more expensive coming from Japan than they are getting them in the States. Like they wanted $40 an insert on Maisumi, and I got them for like 20 something an insert here.
Wow.
But the bodies, like I even sent one of my tooling distributors like the quote, or like the prices I had for the body and the head for my FCR. And I was like, "Can you get anywhere close to this?" He's like, "I can't even touch that price. Like that's insane." I was like, "Okay, cool." Um,
Wow.
so you have to buy them in metric if you buy them on there, but I really don't care. Like 32 millimeters was a perfect size for what I needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a tip if you've got, especially a BT30 machine. The reason we started looking into them is Luma Labs has one, I think, or recommended it. Yeah, he's got one. And then Easton had found this video of a robo drill it might have been a dual contact from like IMTS years ago on YouTube, and it was just ripping up. I want to say it was doing 60 or 70 cubic inches a minute with an FCR. And that's like a way weaker spindle than what we have currently, because this was a few years old robo drill. So yeah, they are a really free cutting tool. And if you've got a 30 taper or even a 40 taper and just want to like absolutely murder aluminum, go ahead and get one.
Yeah, seriously.
Uh, and then let's see. The last thing I had on here that was not a shop news or new things, but I had sent you the post that like Haas right now has absolutely insane deals on automation. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the one that I sent you. I just had it up, but it was like a VF2 and a robot. Shoot, where did it go? It just had it up. Um, anyway, it's like a full automated solution for like, what was it, 120 grand, 130 grand.
think it was 140, and you got like a TRT, a robot, and like the whole machine.
That sounds correct. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so it's a VF2 SS, a TRT 160, and a robot, plus more than $3,200 in free Haas tooling for 139.95 or 139,995. So it's like absolutely insane. The robot alone, so like the nearest thing I could find, or like the company that I can see is similar with like a drawer system for robotics is AWR Robots, which is automation within reach, and I think that their cheapest robot alone was $89,000.
Wow.
Um, let's see, I'm on their website right now. Oh, it
I mean,
starts
I
at
guess.
$99,000 for like I think it's the exact same robot arm.
I mean, I guess the argument would be if you want to go with like a UR, you could.
Yeah, yeah, but even then, like you're still talking 50 grand for the same weight capacity as that robot, and you still don't have the cart or the machine or anything. Like I don't know, I just could not believe how cheap that was. And like some of the Haas tooling right now is bananas. Like we were talking about it on the Discord, and I think Easton bought one, and a few other people bought. Like they're selling face mills right now for like $100, and they come with 20 inserts or something like that.
uh,
Hold on, I'll bring it up real quick. I don't even know if they're still doing it, but it was just insane. Like they're clearly a lot of this is coming from China. Like it says on their website, they're not trying to fool you or anything. But like if it's decent tooling, like if they're at least vetting their manufacturers, it's pretty impressive. Um, this one also looks like a Corloy RM3 copy, is what I think we had decided it was. Yeah, you can get $99 for a 2 inch, $109 for a 2.5 inch, 120 for a 3 inch, or 130 for a 4 inch face mill, and it comes with a Cat 40 arbor and 10 inserts, I think, or maybe 20 inserts.
what?
Yeah, so you just like you can't beat it. Like you can't you can barely beat it on like AliExpress, let
Yeah.
alone like any normal uh website. It's
And I'd
just
rather go through Haas because I have someone I can complain to.
right. Oh yeah. Well, and they were like doing some crazy stuff. A few people were talking that they ordered right when they Haas tooling first came out, and they had given people a $250 gift certificate if you ordered in like the first day of their Haas tooling, just for like giving your opinion, like taking a survey and giving your opinion.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking at it right now. A 2.5 inch Cat 41 comes with the arbor, comes with the face mill, and comes with 10 inserts for $109.
Is it free shipping?
It does not say. My guess is not, but I'm sure it ships from California, so for
Yeah.
you it'd be almost free shipping.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, like if you purchase just the face mill arbor, even from them separately, it's $219.
Whoa.
Yeah, or even just a pack of 10 inserts is $99. So like you are getting pretty much the arbor and the tool holder for the cost of 10 inserts. Um, so again, I have zero idea how good these are. Don't take my. This is not me endorsing Haas. This is not me saying go and buy one. But like, it's
Someone
pretty
go
attractive
buy one
prices.
and let us
Yes,
know.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I know Easton's got one. Like he can't use the tool holder, but he can use the face mill arbor, or the yeah, and so like or the face mill body. And so as soon as he starts playing with it, I'll ask him and see if what his opinion is of it.
Yeah, I'm
So
curious.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely interesting. I am just like blown away though at how cheap the automation solutions from Haas are. Like they are just insane. Like and especially like being able to finance it and everything. And like, did you watch any of the Haas Tech videos?
No, I haven't.
They can control the robots now through the Haas control.
I think you told me that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's insane. Like it's really just super attractive.
Oh,
Like
yeah. I mean,
if you're buying a new Haas and you have the business to support another $60,000 upgrade, pretty much like it seems like a no brainer.
I mean, this is a question I was thinking of, and I'm curious to see your thought. Do you ever see yourself owning a Haas?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so. Oh, it's
Interesting.
even cheaper than I thought. Their robot package is like 40 grand for their 7 kilogram robot.
Hmm.
It depends. Like if I got a production order that required another machine immediately, and like was making just insane money, I could see maybe buying a robot package through Haas with a machine and just like running it into the ground and then selling it off when it was done.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I'd buy for the kind of work that I do. I don't think I'd buy one. I really like what I have now, and I'd probably end up getting another brother if I get another machine, either that or a lathe at this point.
Nice.
So we'll see. Um, I think that's all I had to talk about this week. Unfortunately, most of what I'm working on now is NDA stuff, so I can't really talk specifics. Been using a lot of TSC since I got it hooked up. Uh, yeah, a lot of good stuff, but nothing I can really really talk about too much.
Yeah. You want to jump into questions and then do the book club?
Yeah, yeah, let's do that. And then there's one more question that I did not put down, but when we get to Levi's question, I can just read it off my phone.
Okay. So Tom the machinist asked, "Did Robin Renzetti affect the way you guys consume pizza?" Actually, I cooked a pizza like a couple days ago, and there's one topping that I don't like that I was taking off the pizza, and I was thinking about that. I was like, "Do I really? Am I about to do this?" I didn't, but I almost thought about rearranging everything.
I thought that his post was so hilarious. Like I did not I did not expect that level of like him being that meticulous with the pizza. Like obviously I should have just from his videos on everything else, but when he was talking about it, I was like, ah, yeah, that's like a joke gag. And then he posted that video, and I was like, oh my god, he actually does it.
Oh wait, I'm watching it now. I've never seen this. Oh my
Oh
god!
yeah, yeah, no,
Whoa!
he
What?
yeah, he was not joking.
What the heck?
So it's I don't know that it's changed the way that I consume pizza yet. I haven't had pizza since we talked to him, but like, man, it has definitely changed the way that I look at like topping distribution on pizza. I'm like, man, this is poor workmanship quality. Like,
Yeah,
where's your scale? Where's your instead of dots per inch for scraping, it's like where's your cheese per inch or your
yeah.
toppings per inch kind of measure.
That's so
Um,
funny. I'm watching that. That's crazy.
yeah, so yeah, it hasn't changed the way that I consume pizza quite yet, but definitely the way that I view pizza in general.
Yep.
Data Proto asked peanut butter or jelly.
That's all he asked.
Yep.
You go first.
I don't know how you can have one without the other. Actually, that's not true. I also really like peanut butter, banana, and honey sandwiches. So,
Wait, wait,
like
wait. Peanut peanut
panina
butter peanut butter, banana, and what?
and honey.
Really?
If you haven't tried it, it's so good. Uh,
Like thinly slice a banana
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or
and
like
like evenly distribute it?
of course.
Well, now of course. I don't know about back then.
Yeah, if you don't like banana, you're not gonna like it. And I know like some people think that peanut butter and banana together is a terrible combination, but it's for me, I think it's fantastic. And like
I want to
especially
try that.
like if you toast the bread first, oh, so
Ooh,
good,
interesting.
so good.
I have a really good Instagram post idea now.
All right, well, I'll wait for you to post that.
Yeah.
Uh, all right, Lowry Racing asked you, how do you determine run quantities? Has the goal changed the way you think about it?
I think I kind of mentioned this last week, but and we've talked about it, trying to judge the demand and knowing the demand and how long do you want the product to be inventoried. Um, just historical sales really. And if it's a new product, you really just have to like Dylan and I think we were talking, was it Dylan or no, it was I'm trying to think who was it? I think it was Drew because we were talking about his products and he was struggling with that. He's like, "How do you know how many to make of something new?" And I was like, "I honestly don't. You have to kind of feel it out, figure it out, and then maybe do a couple extras, or depending on the product, it could be 100 extras, it could be 1,000 extras. So it's all just kind of business based.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that's kind of like that's a lot of people's secret sauce is like knowing how many to make and like um there's something to be said. It depends on your market, but like a little bit of scarcity is not all that bad.
Yep.
Like if you're not trying to make a mass produced item, having something that's a limited run and that people are like bugging you to make is I mean, I don't have my own product, so I can only imagine this from your point of view, but like I would think if people are like, you get 30 people that are like, hey, when are you going to stock this back up? You're like, well, shoot, I'm going to make at least 30 because I know there's this many people
Exactly.
who want it. So I think that, yeah, it really depends on your industry. But, you look at somebody like Grimsmo who seemingly never has stock items
Yeah.
like, and that just fuels that business is like, oh, it's so scarce and oh, I want it. And so I'm going to just like wait for it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I've played around with the idea and I've done it before. Is I'll make limited runs and never make them again. Like, here's 50 of this figure. I'm going to charge more for it, but there's only 50. Once they're done, they're done. And I move on to the next thing. I'm not restocking it versus something that I've made 500 of over the past couple years.
Right. Um, Volk CNC Machine asks, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or three duck-sized horses?
Would you rather fight a horse-sized duck? That's a big duck.
Mm-hmm.
Or three duck-sized horses? Isn't that kind of obvious?
I don't know. What's your answer?
Three duck-sized horses. I really am having to think about this. I'm picturing like little ducks. I think it'd be more interesting to do the three duck-sized horses just to see what would happen, because I feel like the horse-sized duck would just like shatter your eardrums.
Yeah. Not only that, but like ducks are vicious and terrifying, and I'm
What?
glad that they're the
What
size
ducks
that they
do
are.
you know?
I've definitely been chased around by birds before, and I am not a big bird fan. So
I'm not a big bird fan, he says. I'm just picturing Dylan getting chased by a duck.
yeah, it's like a kid. You never been chased around by like a goose or a duck or something like that.
I
Like,
thought it was hilarious. I never was terrified.
I mean, I haven't been chased recently. Like, I'm much bigger than them now. But
Recently,
like when I was a kid, yeah,
the
for
other
sure.
day. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Yesterday when I was chased around by a duck. No,
yeah.
come on.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah. So for me, it's also the three duck-sized horses for sure. Like
For
uh,
sure.
for sure. Like that's like tiny puppy sized. You can just
Yeah,
like pick
kick
those things up
them.
and whip them across the room. Like
Whoa.
done.
Done.
Uh, Ibrez asked you, "How's the kickflip coming?"
I haven't skated in a while. I've not had time.
Well, that is both good and bad. I'm
Yep.
glad to hear you're that busy though.
Yeah.
Levi Adams asked,
Whoa.
yes. Okay, hold on. Let me fit it all into my. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you balance not wanting to purchase everything you want slash need when you are running your job shop at night when you're used to a day job that has almost everything? Speaking from someone looking to get into a small shop setup for moonlighting and eventually working for myself. Um, so I think that partially it's just like I only have this much money, and a lot of it is like I try to plan orders and accept orders that have the money in them that I can slowly build my inventory of like inspection tools or tooling or holders or what have you. So like I will specifically maybe not go after work, but like if I see a job that I'm like I would normally turn down or normally would not be super easy for me to accomplish without a certain tool, I would then say like, well, can I roll in this tooling cost into this order and still get it? Like so the titanium order that I had, I was able to roll quite a bit of my boring head cost into it. and like that was something I had wanted and need in quotation marks. Like I it greatly helps me on certain things, having it. Like otherwise, I'd have to interpolate things and hope and pray that I come in with an intent or whatever. So uh, I find that I use the jobs, not every job obviously, because then I would make no money, but I use certain jobs to afford myself better and nicer tools.
Yeah, I would say definitely when I started out, when I first got my machine and I didn't have like any like it's like starting from ground zero, you don't realize, I mean, there's so many little things that cost so much money, and like it's just like gauge pens or thread gauges and all that stuff. And I would say the first probably, and I'm not exaggerating, probably the first 10,000 or $20,000 I made with like jobs, a lot of that went straight into like just stuff to help me do it better next time, or inspect it better next time, or be able to do work next time. And so, but I'll tell you, it is so nice when you get that repeat work and it's like, well, I already got the thread gauge. I already got all the end mills, the specialty tools that I spent hundreds of dollars on. Like I've got everything. Now it's just straight profit.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. And like when you're starting off, I know a lot of people shit all over eBay, but like we bought so much on eBay to start our shop. Like all of our pin gauge sets came from there, and like I think we were missing maybe one pin out of both sets from like 11 thou to half inch. And like you just have to kind of pay attention and play the market. And like I lowball a ton of people on eBay. Like I got our last calipers for under $100 because they looked kind of dirty and it was just some lady selling them off. And I was like, they look kind of dirty and it's kind of a chance on my part since you don't have any, you don't know anything about them. She was like, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, or like our height gauge, the same thing. Like it was just some lady, I think, selling off her late husband's stuff. And I was like, this is what I can spend. And like, you know what? I don't know. I don't feel like I'm ever offending anybody because they have the chance to say no. Like
Oh, yeah.
I don't know they're like, I'm not taking advantage of people. I'm just like, this is what I can afford to spend right now. And if that's not good for you, then that's not good for you. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they're the
but
one that says accept offer.
right, exactly, yeah. So I definitely look on eBay though for a lot of gauging because you can always get stuff calibrated and or fixed or whatever. I think there's been a few people on Instagram that have bought height gauges that say they're damaged or say they're not working, and it turns out that like the battery terminal needed to be replaced or something like that. So, um, you know, shop at your own risk. Obviously, like there's a lot of people scamming on there and a lot of people selling absolute garbage, but if you work with tooling enough, you kind of know what to look for. Like to look on plastic tooling for like wear marks. Like calipers that have been used for years and years and years have wear marks on like where the wheel is and by the screen and the buttons and all that stuff. So I think you definitely have to balance it. Like you can't just buy everything, obviously, but you can certainly get like I guess your minimum viable inspection gauges or minimum viable tooling necessary to complete the job at not like astronomical costs.
Yeah.
The next one is from Gradient Manufacturing, and he asked aluminum mold polishing tips, tricks, suggestions, or resources.
Never done it. Actually, I have done it once, but none of my molds I polish. It's straight out of the machine, and my finish is gorgeous. So I don't even know how people would polish some of these tiny things. I know there's a lot of YouTube videos and books on it, but I just avoid that.
Yeah, I don't really have any tips or tricks. One thing, speaking of aluminum polishing, though, that I first saw on oh man, what's that guy's name? He was a guest on Machinist Therapy Hotline. Let me find his Instagram real quick. I'm like totally spacing on his name, but I was just looking at his um, Instagram the other day. But he got a vapor polishing blaster, which is like a
Okay.
bead blaster or a sand blaster that also shoots out water,
Huh.
and it it like looks like it really polishes aluminum. Like I don't think I'd use it for molds, obviously, but it's definitely gotten me kind of interested because it like it does not create that like porous, dry surface that normal bead blasting does. It keeps it a lot more clean and a lot more smooth. And it deburrs really well. It looks like it is Secret Machine Shop from Imago Manufacturing. That's who it was. Um, Imago, and they like he just got one, and I immediately started researching it for my day job. But I was also like, oh man, I would love to trade my bead blaster, or turn my bead blaster into one of these because it looks like it doesn't destroy features as much, and it just looks heaps better. So I definitely, again, kind of a tangent off of aluminum mold polishing, but it just got me thinking of polishing and deburring and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's one thing to definitely look out for. And then real quick, we had a few that came in while we were talking. Um, let's see. Horizontal pallet pool or fast 30 taper machine with a robot for automation?
That's kind of a hard question, not knowing the application, but I don't know. Whatever you want, dude.
That was actually going to be more or less my response to like it really depends on the application. Like if you're doing parts that need 5-axis, I'd much rather have a fast 30 taper with a 5-axis trunnion in there and a robot. But if you're doing something that can like be beefed up on a horizontal with a pallet pool, well, you definitely turn more parts with that, I think.
If you're
Uh,
making AR receivers or door stops, it's kind of two different
right.
situations.
Well, and really, you also got to get into like it is a lot easier to get a horizontal up and running than an automation solution. Like unless you build the process from the beginning with automation, but also you could probably get two smaller speedios and a robot for what it costs for a decent horizontal and a pallet pool, or even three speedios maybe in a robot. Um, like horizontals alone are a few hundred grand, and then a pallet pool is usually a few hundred grand. So you're talking, yeah, I mean, 3, 4 speedios and maybe a robot.
Or a mother bleeping fleet of VF2s.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it again, different strokes for different folks, kind of thing. But it really just depends on the process that you're looking for, the kind of parts that you're making, all of that stuff. How much startup capital you have, that what you value in a machine tool, all of that really comes into play.
Yep.
Let's see. Easton was being funny and asking me how many pairs of underwear did the FCR claim, which I told him was 0 because I have not broken anything yet. Knock on wood.
He's just mad he had to go back to Costco and get a 24 pack.
um, and then DFM Toolworks asked what the next book is, and we will get into that shortly.
All right. Is it
So, do you want to?
class time?
I think it's class time. It is the last
Shit.
class. Last class for the goal. And as last time went, I wrote a quick summary of all the chapters. We went from 26 all the way to 40, and somebody reached out 2 times ago and said like, "Hey, you should probably mention the book every time," just like we're really bad about introducing ourselves every time.
We should.
Um,
I was about to say, if wait, how long we're already an hour in? Okay, people might not be listening. We need to do another introduction.
yeah, I think we need to revamp with Intolerance in the new year. Like we're in November, maybe January 1st we'll come out with like a new intro.
For
Um,
1995.
yeah, sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah.
No. So the book we've been reading is The Goal by Eliyahu Goldrat, and actually the last 2 assignments I have listened to on my phone because it's actually, I mean, all books are not like this. I'm listening to another book on tape that's not nearly as fun to listen to, but like this one is narrated by like a bunch of different people, like a different person for every character. and there's music and there's like sound
It's
effects
like
and
a
all kinds of
movie.
stuff. It really is. It reminds me of like an old radio show almost. So yeah, we started 26. All right, let's back up. And actually, 26 I had talked about a little bit last time. I got confused. I thought we were on. I thought this was in 25. So 26 started that Alex talks to his kids about solving the problem of other machines running away from the bottlenecks, and so he has them solve the problem. And one of the kids comes up with a drum beat so that all the machines can hear and step in time. And then his boy comes up with the analogy of tying everyone together, or tying the first one to the bottleneck, and that they need to constrain the rest of the company to the actual constraint in the company, and that like the constraints will tell the company when to release orders. It allows for the non-bottlenecks to also be scheduled by backtracking from assembly, and Jonah also leaves in this chapter. Chapter 27, Frost compliments the Barrington plant on doing so well, but Hilton refuses to accept the progress. Efficiency numbers are tanked due to not releasing materials, but are on their way back up. Peach says he needs 15% to not close the plant, and Alex says, yep, no problem, and then spends the drive home freaking out about how he's going to do that. So, chapter 28, he calls Jonah to improve the numbers to meet the 15%. And the next logical step is to cut non-bottleneck parts in half so that they have less work in progress, less investment, less all of that. The time of a piece and the time a piece of material spends in the plant is setup, process time, queue time, wait time while it's waiting for other parts to be assembled. The bottlenecks dictate inventory and throughput. They reduce time spent in the plant. Reduced time spent in the plant makes their lead time condense. An hour saved at a non-bottleneck is a mirage. It does not matter as long as it's not holding up assembly. And idle time created at non-bottlenecks idle time is created at non-bottlenecks by doing all of this when they cut all of their work in progress in half and all of that. And so the more setups by cutting those in half does not matter. And then he also makes his bet with Johnny Johns to buy him some more Gucci loafers if he cannot deliver within, I think, 3 weeks of an order being placed. Chapter 29, they picked up a bunch of new orders. And the efficiencies increase once excess inventory was consumed. Parts are ready to be moved sooner due to smaller batch sizes, so they're actually be able to move from machine to machine quicker. They do some accounting funny business to make the cost of the parts go back down. Bucky Burnside comes and they make the deal with him and Johnny Johns for the 1,000 type whatever is 12s, I think, or whatever. The electronic control models as part of the deal for that product, they can't get all of them at the same time, and so they engineer a deal for smaller batches more frequently, which Burnside accepts, and they start down this road. Chapter 30, they get their raise in business, the 15% that they expected. Burnside order is going well. The performance review is scheduled at headquarters, and they get an official rebuke on the accounting funny business they did to bring the cost of the products back down. But nothing from Peach. He remained silent. It was just from the accounting department. Johnny Johns and Burnside come to the plant and like shake everybody's hands and say how great they're doing and all that fun stuff. 31, Unico performance review with Hilton. Alex explains the goal to Hilton and everybody there. Hilton can't be swayed. Alex explains the goal to Peach once that he thinks that he's lost this whole thing, and goes to Peach and explains it to Peach. And Peach says, "Oh, I'm moving up the ladder and I'm promoting you to the head of the division." Jonah refuses to come see Alex to prevent dependency. He says you should figure out what you need to learn, and he says you need to figure out what techniques are needed for effective management. Chapter 32, Alex feels like it's an empty victory at first when he's talking to his wife. All of the answers are common sense, and so he doesn't understand why they didn't see them first or earlier. He realized that ownership in the development of a solution creates buy-in from people. So rather than just like feeding them the best way to do something, making them discover it makes them want to do it. Jonah only gave guiding questions. Common sense is often opposed to common practice, which is what he's trying to figure out. He doesn't understand why that is. They talk about the Socratic method of asking questions and how to persuade other people. 33, Alex begins to assemble his team. He starts with Lou, who actually volunteers, even though he was worried that he wouldn't. Bob doesn't want to go. He wants to be the plant manager. He wants the plant to start engineering the sale like they did with the Burnside order, where like they figured out a better way to deliver what Burnside wanted than even Burnside knew. He suggests Stacy as the replacement production manager, and she starts talking about capacity constraint resources, which are machines that they're discovering are not bottlenecks per se, but if they don't stay on top of them, they seem to pack up with material. 34, Alex talks with his team to figure out how to be a better manager. How can you do anything without knowing the data? Is classification of data pointless? 35 was a kind of continuation of that. They talk about how to reveal intrinsic order, and then the example about Mendeleev and the periodic table, how classification of data can very often be pointless unless you can find this intrinsic order. Like you find something that not only orders things but provides information about the groupings of things. Let's see, 36. They start the division on the process of an ongoing improvement. Bob brings up the useless formal improvement projects that many of us in shops have seen. I think that everybody has heard the process of ongoing improvement in one form or another. I mean, I think it's part of the AS 9100 standard, but very often it just brings up absolute BS. So Lou says that it's always a matter of measurements, of course, and that it's switching the scale of importance. And to Bob, and he realizes that process is the important word. It's not the ongoing improvement; it is the process of ongoing improvement. And they come up with the 5 rules, which is identify the bottlenecks, decide how to exploit the bottlenecks, subordinate everything to the above, elevate the bottlenecks, and if a bottleneck is broken, go back to number 1. 37, Stacy realizes that the red and green tags are causing the problems, that they're actually creating these capacity constraint things, and she admits to actually stacking up more material at bottlenecks than needed, and that enables them to come to the conclusion that at step 5, not only is it if the bottleneck is broken, go back to 1, but it is also do not allow inertia to cause a constraint. Chapter 28, they head to Johnny John's, which I realized in my notes I just started abbreviating as JJ because it was so ridiculous. So they head to him to ask for orders. They need $10 million more in sales because they realized they had that much more capacity after they got rid of the tags and stopped stacking up extra inventory. And that's what they were talking about with inertia, is like she was so worried about the bottlenecks being a bottleneck because of past results that she had actually padded all of the bottlenecks, which she did not need to do and actually caused all these problems. So they needed $10 million in sales. They went and told Johnny Johns to accept a sale to a Frenchman who had wanted their parts at less than current cost said. But because of all of their new costing and their new efficiencies, they actually were going to make money off of that. And they were using that order as a beachhead to expand into Europe and the world. So Alex then wants to search. He starts searching through like scientific books for a scientific method on how Jonah knew so much about the shop floor. He feels that like he is redundant now because there's no fires to put out. So like what he feels that as a manager, what is he even supposed to be doing now if there's no fires? And he brings up the point that physicists don't just collect data. He was reading a physics book and they start with a hypothesis and they say, if then, like if this happens, then this should happen. And they follow that hypothesis and test it. And that's how they kind of figure out the world. Chapter 39, he gets a call from Peach. Hilton's plant, of course, is not doing well. Stacy and Bob are having issues. Oh, right. So this is the one where they're starting to have bottlenecks that are moving around the factory. They now have, $10 million more of work in the shop, and they are now seeing all these bottlenecks appear. And they talk about, Murphy striking, which is Murphy's law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. and they realize that they need all of this excess capacity in things that feed the bottlenecks, because if Murphy strikes the bottlenecks, they need to be able to consume whatever excess inventory they have right in front of the bottleneck as like a buffer, but then they also need to immediately rebuild that buffer stock, and they weren't doing that, and that's what caused this issue. And Bob kind of takes the reins as the new plant manager and corrects that. And then in chapter 40, the reports from the other plants are absolutely terrible. They're not valuing inventory correctly, and all of these other metrics are out of place. The first step to improvement is to identify the weakest link. And, Alex is kind of harping on Lou about all these numbers and about actually identifying what is going on, not focusing on the metrics. And he says that, first you have to identify the constraints and not just like point out the bad stuff, and that real constraints in this company are policies, and that he needs to identify the core problem, and that the questions he wants to ask Jonah are, how do I identify the core problem? What do I change? What do I change it to? And how to cause the change. And that's how the book ends.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the end?
I think I'm trying to kind of figure out, and this will be interesting to hear your opinion on kind of towards the end, what is the overarching message that the book was pushing? I think for me was a little confusing.
So one of them is that those 5 steps, like that I think is like the law the book sets down that you're supposed to take away is like, I forgot to say also in chapter 37, they say, remove the word bottlenecks from the rules and put constraints. And that's why
Uh-huh.
the subtitle is the law or the theory of constraints or something like that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm sorry, the subtext on the book cover is the best-selling business novel that introduced the theory of constraints. Um, and so, yeah, the 5 rules are a big thing, and like you can use them for anything if it's both systemic or a tiny problem. But the whole thing is to identify your bottlenecks, decide how you're going to change how you're using those bottlenecks or exploit their resources, and then make sure that nothing gets in the way of that. And like that can be as little as like, well, when I get to the shop, I always find that like I'm spending 30 minutes turning on my computer, and that's bottlenecking 30 minutes of my time. It's like, well, okay, I'll upgrade my computer, or I'll set it to automatically turn on before I get to the shop, or something like that. And it's all about like streamlining that process and making sure that that bottleneck is never wasting that time, because as we learned earlier, an hour wasted at a bottleneck is an hour wasted for the entire plant or the entire shop.
And I think
Um,
that's totally the case with people like us, where it's like we talked about last time we talked about the book is, our constraints are time, and when one task takes up all of our attention for 30 minutes, that's 30 minutes that this couldn't be running or this couldn't be doing this. And so I think that's totally true.
yeah, yeah, and I think that it makes you think not about like sales metrics or, oh, I converted this many dead carts this week or whatever. It's like, no, I need to just make money. That's my goal. Anything that prevents me from doing that, from
Is a
getting raw
problem.
material out the door as finished parts, is a problem, and I need to make sure that I do everything in my power to eliminate those. And like,
Yeah.
it's definitely a little bit of a different idea for us because we are so small. Like, if it would be different if we had a few employees, or if we had more set in stones production things. But like, right now, like a bottleneck for you could be those helmets. So like you could figure out some way to either automate putting all those helmets on there, or some bulletproof way to train somebody to check for them or something like that.
Yeah.
Like little things like that can still be a bottleneck. A bottleneck does not need to be an NCX10, or it doesn't need to be a heat treat on it.
Whatever the heck that machine is.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was a well made up name, because I could totally see somebody coming out with an
Oh,
NCX10. I don't think
yeah.
I've ever seen one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the end of the book is kind of more top level 30,000 feet stuff. It's like sometimes the worst thing is big systemic changes, and like even getting started with them is tough, and you have to think, what am I going to change? Like, is it, he mentions that like the things wrong in his company are policies. It's not like it was never the NCX10. It was never the heat treat oven. It was how they managed their inventory and how they thought about inventory and how they thought about workflow and all of that stuff. And to change big ideas like that, sometimes it's hard to figure out where to start and like what the actual problem is. And so you kind of have to step back and you have to say, what is the core problem? And you really have to think on it and like ask yourself questions or have somebody else ask you questions or go over it with somebody and start down that road of like, where is the core problem or what is the core
It's like the
problem?
5 whys or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it very much um, is right along that same thing. Like, and the 5 whys again is like another, it's a fantastic idea, but it is one that is so overused in aerospace and
Yeah.
stuff that sometimes it can lose its meaning. And it's not just to like answer 5 questions and get it done and get back to work. It's like to actually think like, but why? Like, why is this happening? Like, who?
Be the 5-year-old.
Right, exactly, yeah. So, I think that that's a big thing, and then also the whole thing about if then, like you can really start planning things out. Like we know our business is fairly in and out. We can start planning things of like, well, if I do this, then this, and this are all changed. And like you can test that. You can change that thing and see if that changes the things you thought. And like you can learn more about how your deductive reasoning is and whether your business actually flows the way you think it is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that was pretty much the end of the business, or sorry, the end of the goal. Um, it was great to listen to it again. Actually, I really forgot how much I liked it, and like personally, right now, I see a ton of use for it, both in my business, but especially in my day job. And so, like, I'm really pushing them. We're doing a book club too there, and like I'm really pushing them to read this one next because I think it would be really helpful.
That'd be interesting. I'm curious to see if they read it and what they think of it.
Yeah, yeah, and again, one of the rules that is paramount is don't allow inertia to cause a constraint. So, like, if you change something, it starts getting better, go back and reevaluate your assumptions that led you to that change, because they will change again. Like when they added buffer inventory on the, or too much buffer inventory on the bottlenecks, it's because they were so used to them being bottlenecks that they didn't want any lost hours. But now they were flowing way faster through the shop, and so they didn't need all of that buffer inventory, and it was just gumming up the works more or less.
Yeah.
Um, so real quick before we pick another book, we had another question come in, and I figured we'll just do them live as they come in. I don't think anybody else will get one. But Sequoia Manufacturing asked, could you go through your workflow from getting an RFQ through ordering material tooling to invoice step by step? Where, how are you saving all related documents to the job, traveler drawings, quote, invoice, blah, blah, blah? Are you saving CAD CAM files in Fusion Cloud or Dropbox hard drive? Thanks a lot.
Whoa. You want to? I mean, I can say what I do. I feel like we've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, let's just, we can go over it quick.
Okay, you get a part, like let's say a step file and a print is normally what I get, and I have a folder on my computer that's named clients or customers. Then in that folder there's all the companies that I work with, and I then within, let's say Dylan's like, Payton, can you make this? I'm like, all right, cool. So he gets his new folder that says Proteum or Dylan Jackson or whatever I want to call it, and then in that folder I normally have a folder with each month. So it'll be like November of 2020, and then in that there'll be these files, and then in Fusion I just have another folder that's just like customers, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's more or less what I do. I don't save many drawings. I usually use them once because most of my stuff's not repeat business. So I usually don't save drawings, but like I'll save models in Fusion. I've got, yeah, customer files and then by customer. And then in each customer, I actually have a potential folder as well where I save all stuff that I'm currently quoting. And then once I receive it, like a PO for it, then I move it into the main folder. But I don't want to like clutter up my Fusion folder with like a million things that I'm not going to make. Um, and then so I get the RFQ. I usually already have material either quoted or at least the material sizes by that point, because I use that to estimate material costs. Um, so I'll either send out an email to get it, or order it on McMaster or whatever. Um, I save all related documents into a folder with customer name, and then I do it by part number. I don't have a month thing. Um, I save so all of my customer file. Well, yeah, most of them are saved in a folder. Most everything CAD CAM is obviously in Fusion Cloud. I don't I have like local archives, but I don't do it very often. Like I'm not too worried about it. Again, like I don't have any production files to protect really. I think I'd be a little bit more diligent about a local backup if I had a production part that I was running all the time. Um, but yeah, it's RFQ. I look at the printer, the model, establish stock size, run down my quoting spreadsheet, and do op by op estimates of setup and runtime. I roughly know what it takes to set up, 20 tools or 10 tools or whatever. And yeah, once I do that, send off the quote. If I get the RFQ, then that's the rest of the process.
Yeah.
So next, um, book.
I have no idea.
So somebody recommended this, and I actually have it in my stack of books to read. Is one called Traction,
Okay.
and it's supposed to be a very good business book. It's called Traction. Subtext is "Get a Grip on Your Business" by Gino Wickman.
I'm looking at it now. Another one I really want to do is that Jocko Willink one.
Oh, yeah, I'm 10 pages from finishing that one, I think.
Okay, so maybe not.
We were doing that for work, and that one's pretty good. I think that depending on the kind of person you are, it will depend on how much you get from it.
I mean,
So
let's see.
I was recommended this one, and then somebody also wrote in and said "How to Win Friends and Influence People" was another one.
I've heard of that.
I have that book. I've never been able to get past like the first chapter or two of it. Um, but again, like that also happened to me with the goal, and then I ended up loving it. So I'm definitely not saying anything bad about it. I just, at the times I've read it, it has not spoken to me, and so I put it down.
It's weird you say that because like the E Myth for me, I read like the first two chapters and could not get into it, and then came back to it like 6 months later, and it like totally changed my brain. And I love that book, but like total opposite with the goal. Like honestly, like I got stuff from the goal, but like I'm still kind of like processing what I read, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. I mean,
totally.
we can just go shoot from the hip, and I can get this traction book. Unless we want to see if people have any ideas on Instagram the next couple days.
It's up to you. This one's a quick one too. I want to say it's 200 something pages.
Okay, let me see if it's
So a
on
little,
Amazon.
yeah. So it's like 100 pages less than the goal too.
Okay,
Do you want to do this one?
yeah, let's just do it.
Okay. So everybody, we will post on Instagram as well. We'll post on the Discord. Traction: Get a Grip on Your Business by Gino Wickman. The expanded edition right now is $14 on Amazon.
Get it before
I
we
show,
sell it out.
yeah, I was gonna say I show good stock on my end. Apparently, last time as we saw, it really depends on like the place in the like world you live or the place in the U.S. Definitely join the Discord. We will be better about like staying up on it. I was even thinking that maybe we'll start doing weekly updates on it, and that way we can get through a book a little quicker, and like people won't read ahead. We could just like do 10 minutes after our guests or something like that.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. And I guess how many pages is it?
275, I think it said, or two.
I'm just trying to think. Should we tell people to like get it and start reading it right away, or
So it's 246 pages. I don't have the book in front of me, so I can't really assign
So let's say
chapters.
next week we have a guest. So then the 24th would be the next time we talk.
Yeah, so get it.
Get the book and read 50 pages.
Well, why don't you get the book by next week, the 17th, or whenever our next pod, it'll probably come out the 18th or 19th, and then we'll assign a reading over the weekend
Okay.
after our guest.
Okay, let's do that.
Cool. All right. So again, everybody, Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business by Gino Wickman. The one I'm showing is illustrated too, I think, or it says illustrated April 3rd of 2012. I don't think it's actually illustrated. I don't remember that in mine. Anyway, get that book. We will. It's on Audible too. We will assign things both by page number in the book, and also by chapter, so that everybody listening on Audible can listen that way as well.
All right, cool.
Cool. Well, thanks again, everybody. Have an excellent week. Kick ass, and we will see you next week.
All right, see you guys.